So we've got our 6-year-old child here, Jack Broham.
I'm 10.
He's 10, apparently. It's his birthday. He's going to turn it on. He's going to pan around until the bottom two sensors get the biggest light value, which is going to be tricky because there's no light for it to find. Maybe we should get a torch for it quickly, Jack, let's be fine. So yeah, we'll just keep panning until it gets there. Should eventually find it. Here's the full LDR setup. Unfortunately, due to the number of lights, it won't follow the logic. Now that it's got some definite light, it's come up. And now it's in tracking mode. So the shadow is on this side and the light's on this side, so it's turned to the light.
Set to turn the base.
Set to turn the base because we've got nothing holding onto it. See, now it'll come up. As the lights are pointing on the bottom two LDRs. Yeah, we can go all the way to the limit switch if you want. No, go to the top one. So we can quickly cheat the limit switch. Show that if we hit this top one, it's going to back all the way back down to the bottom limit switch and then bounce off of it. So we'll hit the limit switch and then go away from it a little bit. Now you've got to reset by going to the neutral position on the switch and then back to on. So if you switch it back on, we'll now fold up, find the sun again, and now continue to track. If you switch it off,
Can we talk about what we use to power it?
yeah, to power it, we've got a little Arduino board which compares the sum of the values of the LDRs. Then uses PWM to control each of the H bridges. We've used two because if the motors are running simultaneously, you can draw too many amps through the one. So by running them in parallel, we ensure that doesn't happen. They do get pretty warm if they run for a long time, but if it's actually tracking the sun, it'll only do small bursts, so that's really good. In terms of the wiring, it's still a little bit messy. We've got a bunch of shrink wrap here, which is meant to protect the wires as the arm folds up and down, and these wires going to the motors would have been neatly ducted around the corners if we'd had time.
We'll talk about the gears.
Yeah, we've got a couple of little gears in here. So we've got a worm drive driving a spur gear, and that goes down to the shaft, which drives another spur gear. So the motor's got a 5-to-1 reduction. I think the worm gear's got a 50-to-1, and that's then driving around about a 5-to-1. So that multiplies to quite a big number, so it moves nice and slow. And it would also be really strong, except the little plastic worm gear is quite weak and it slips. Ultimately we would have had a brass one, but we didn't have the money to buy one and we didn't want to spend any of our own budget on this. But yeah, it's a really strong system. It also brakes the panel, so if the wind tries to turn it by blowing on it, it won't let the panel spin, which is really neat.
Same with threaded rod.
Same with the threaded rod on the vertical axis. The control system has also been designed to be idiot-proof, so once it's switched on, it can bump between limit switches without causing any problems, so you don't really need to know specifics on how to use this panel. It also is sort of set up for if it's working on the equator. If it folds flat, which is very unlikely to happen, it goes into its sort of semi-off case, and the use instruction manual says that if this happens while you're on the equator, to just wait sort of 20 minutes, flick it back to the on position, it'll re-find the sun and then track down the other way. If this was a major issue for a client, we could customise the code just to have a delay in it, which would then get it automatically doing that after, say, 20 minutes. But as it's unlikely this will be used on the equator, it's been left to the other sort of default mode, as this seemed more of a priority. Also got a bearing in the block there, and the load wheels here, which ensures that the motor isn't actually carrying any load on it, because that would wear out that little bearing inside the motor really quickly. The box itself has gaps at all corners, so it drains, and all the electronics are raised off of the floor, which means that they can't get wet.